Hello, listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the New Block Nerds podcast. I am your host, Chris, aka Prince, with the homie Darron, aka Manic Grizzly. Darron, how we doing, bro?
Doing great, bro. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. So, guys, we are back in Westeros with our favorite crippled little boy, Bran.
Cripple,
Um,
the cripple. Why you say the cripple? Ah!
he's not a cripple. Bran will let you know that if you ever call him one. So,
Damn.
Darron, there's quite a bit in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of kind of like end game threat foreshadowing going on here, as is become the custom with Bran chapters. But your first time reading it, like, what were your like initial thoughts about kind of like what Bran is dreaming about and thinking about in this chapter?
This chapter was two chapters in one. If that makes any sense. Like, there's the one section when Bran's inside his room and he's basically realizing that, hey, my life's never gonna be the same. I'm not gonna be able to do what I want to do. Everyone in the family's pretty much left me. They felt like I was abandoned. Feel that they keyed on that Rob is not Rob anymore. He's now Lord Rob. He acts different. He has more time for Greyjoy and all them than he does him. Like, the whole atmosphere of the kingdom, it's gone. It's different. Dad promised that we'll ride off to King's Landing in my horse. That's not gonna happen. Like, just everything about that. So he gets a little bitter. And then we go to the whole storytelling of the old lady, and he expresses how much she hates her stories. And then she says, "Okay, you hate these stories? I got some stories for you." And bro, were they different? Were they different?
Oh
So
yeah.
my so my question for you, my sir, because when she started talking about the past but also the future, she's talking about all these things in just one giant like conversation. Old people, they got some stories. Tell me in your brain how things were, and did you get like on the edge of your seat when she was dropping some gems?
Yeah, so I love this chapter because of Old Nan's stories. I feel like
Yeah.
anytime we get a Bran chapter, I feel like Bran's chapters moving forward are the chapters that we get the most info about the others, because that's his whole purpose in this game, right? Is to learn about the others and how to stop them.
Yep.
Um, with with Old Nan's stories, I love a lot of the things that she drops in here, because not only does it give you a little bit of history about Westeros, before the Andals came, and way back when it was just a whole country ran by the First Men, which
Mhm.
the Starks are descended from. But there's a lot of gems in here that like make you really start theorizing about like how this whole like Green Seer network and like Bran's purpose is going to be. Because to your point, she's talking about stories that are past, present, and future. And it's kind of like when I was rereading it, and I was kind of getting that vibe from like Watchmen, the TV series, where
Ooh.
like when they're looking through time, but because they're looking through time, time doesn't operate the same way for someone who has that ability to look through time. Everything is kind of, there's no past, present, and future. Everything is kind of jumbled up all into one. And that has been said in the lore about like the children of the forest and everything like the and green seers and stuff like that. Even in the TV show, we remember Bran kind of talking about like looking through the trees, looking through the timeline, how him looking at time differently than the way the rest of us look at time is like a linear thing. It's all kind of jumbled together. So like little
Yeah.
things like that in Old Nan's stories like really made me be like, huh, this is gonna be some weird shit she's getting into.
Yeah, bro. Even when she mentioned like the giant ice spiders, everything else, I'm like, yo, my head went straight to the actual TV show, and it's thinking of like everything that happened. Like, it just, bro, there's just so many down. Like, I'm like, she is either been there or she's talking about something that happened. We not supposed to know about this yet. It sounds all like a puzzle, and you're trying to listen. Like, if you're just
Yep.
first time listening to this, you're like, what is she talking about? It's an old woman is rambling, but it's crazy. The wolves go crazy, everything going happening, and then hey, we got a visitor that comes to town, and we already mentioned that Rob was acting different. He's already been like just Lord Rob trying to make sure that he's actually getting stronger, I guess, or just trying to
Yeah.
be the man.
He's wearing a sword all the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you feel about when the visitor came back in town that he was not expecting?
So
Uh,
that
My
that that
favorite
that part
character
is
of all time.
funny. But I want to touch on something you said about like old Nan's stories being a puzzle, and that's really how George gives us tidbits about the threat of the others. He gives us little nuggets here and there, and we're left to piece it together later on, which he leaves it so vague as far as like the timeline, because old Nan's talking about this happened thousands and thousands of years ago, and she's talking about a Brandon Stark. Could be Bran, could be her Bran, could be Uncle Brandon who died from the Mad King. It could be all these different Brandon Starks throughout the Stark lineage,
They
right?
use
And
the
so
same
like,
name. Yes, they
right,
use a freaking same name.
right. I mean, just like a lot of families have family names, right? Like you have family names in your family, so do I, right? Like it's a common thing. But I love how they piece it together with this very very important like exposition from old Nan's point of view,
Hmm.
because like it's left you wondering like, okay, what really happened? Like, what is the actual written accepted history in Westeros of the others? And we come to find out there isn't one, which is a huge problem because you're going to need to know what to do, what happened last time, to be able to deal with them this time. But anyways, we could talk for an hour about all the things that are in
Yeah.
Old Nan's stories. But sorry to answer your question. Tyrion coming back. I mean, Tyrion coming on the scene is always fun because he's Tyrion and he just talks shit wherever he goes. That's just what he does. That's what he's known for.
Hmm.
Um, I, it was funny to see Rob kind of start to come into his own because he is acting Lord right now while
Hmm.
his father is away, um, and to see him kind of be an immature teenage boy and greet a guest with bare steel. You see Bran talk about it like, hey, like that's not a good sign when you greet someone,
Bro,
blade in hand when they
this
come to your
whole
house.
they kind of like warned us about how things are going to be and how the emotions are kind of high. Like they try to walk us through it when they said, "Hey, the vibe in the house, Reckon's doing this thing, but everyone else is kind of on little pins and needles, right?"
Right.
And then we already said that Rob's been like training, all you hear is still, still, still. And then Tyrion mentions that actually in there, like, "Hey, I know it wasn't like a warm guest here. You can tell from the outside entrance even coming in. And if you're supposed to be the Lord, this is not how you do it." So if Bran recognizes that, he's a young lad in this whole entire thing.
He's like
Rob,
8.
yeah, and he recognizes that, and everyone else is like, kind of like, "Yo, bro, like this is still a Lannister. Like, what are you doing? Like, yo, relax. Like,
Yeah, relax. Yeah.
you need to calm down. Like, just like you're going to start some mess. Not saying that it's not warranted, but right now you are not in a position to do that."
Right.
So I just love the charisma of Tyrion. Like, he is just like, by far, no matter what situation happens, he's still gonna be him. He's still gonna have the bars. He's still gonna come in there with like, I'm gonna talk my trash, but it's gonna be in a very slick manner. And you're either gonna keep up with me, or I'm gonna make you feel like you're below me. He does a
Yeah,
really good job at that.
it's really Rob's first test at like any kind of politics.
Yeah.
Um, so it's no wonder a 15-year-old boy who's made acting Lord kind of overnight, is going to
Mhm.
make a mistake like this against someone as like politically shrewd as like a Tyrion. Because Rob does make a mistake and greet him with bare steel because that's not the Lannister you need to look out for. Tyrion is not the one who's coming to purposely harm the Starks just because he's a scumbag like the rest of the other Lannisters, right? Like, and it come to find out that like he was actually trying to do Bran a solid because him and John had such a connection at the wall. And it's funny, Tyrion even says it to Rob, like, it seems your bastard brother has more of your father's lordly courtesies. And I was like,
Yo,
oh.
this anytime that Rob's in the building, and then when John is mentioned, it's just like a cringe moment because like it's so obviously true. Like, it's so very like it's there. you're not him, bro. I know you want to be. You're not him.
And I love Rob, and I love Rob. Don't get me wrong, right? I love Rob, and like you see in Brand's POV, he's talking about, he's taking a page out of their father's book, going, riding out for days at a time to go to like some distant holdfast in the north, because the people need to see him. If this is going to be their acting lord for the foreseeable future up here, they need to see him. They need to eat with him. The same things Bran talked about that his father had always preached about, having a different man at your table, every night, and, all those other kind of things. So you see Rob trying to like emulate those things. I think that little tidbit that Tyrion said about Jon is just another reminder for us as the reader that like Jon is more of a visually and kind of through some of his actions that we'll see later on in the wall is more of a traditional Stark, where a lot of the other Stark kids have a lot of like Tully preferences as far as like visually and in some cases politically.
All right, so this is the questions I got. I told you I got some questions for you, bro.
Okay.
Because it goes on to the direwolves actually almost having dinner early. they hopped on Tyrion. And then you see Bran is the one that speaks up and say, hey, y'all gotta back off. And not really Rob. So when you say that Rob is showing some Stark in him, I don't think so, bro. I think Bran is more Stark. I think Rob is more Tully. I really do, because I think Tully's, from what my short reading and also seeing what's going on, they are so narrow-minded on their particular vision, they don't see everything else going on. So when everything else was not, he was so focused on him being there and how he had to protect his home, he didn't even realize, like, yo, he's about to get devoured by direwolves. Like, it was there, but it wasn't to stop him. Versus Bran and the Starks, they actually, Ned and everything else, they see some things, but Ned has moments also being narrow-minded. But Bran's sitting back and like, yo, like, you going to do something, bro? Like, are you going to step up? Or are you going to say something? Okay, I will say something.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I don't know.
All right, so that's a good question, and from my understanding, George has spoken a little bit about the magical connection that the Stark children have with their direwolves. So
Yeah.
they all have that ability because it's all in their blood. It's just stronger
Okay.
in some than it is in others, right? So like you'll see with Rob, there's clearly a connection between him and Grey Wind when they do end up going to war.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. I don't want to spoil anything, but with Bran, I do think that connection is the strongest since he is the one who does have the green sight. So I think it's easy. It was easier for him early on. I think he had the strongest connection early on with his direwolf.
Okay.
And you'll see, of course, Jon has that connection with Ghost as well too. So I do think it's. I think it's there less so to paint Rob as a Tully, because there's plenty
Okay.
of that in the books, right? To like
Yeah.
talk about the parallels between him and his mom, but more so to talk up Bran's natural magical ability with the direwolves. At least that's how I took it.
Okay. Okay. See, I took it as like Bran, even like Tyrion, even like the other House of Black, everybody else, they looked at Bran as he was a king. He was the lord of the house.
Mm-hmm.
They were treating him such as with the respect, and everyone else almost like they feel a piece of calm when he speaks.
Mm-hmm.
Versus brother, it's like, yo, he's about to rumble. Let me get my boots up. It's a different vibe when he speaks versus the other one. And I'm like, even Tyrion said when he bowed out, he's like, yo, you can stay here. Try to like sheave his sword back and try to say, well, you can stay here. He's like, don't give me a fake lol.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
you,
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I know you like you greeted me with bear steel.
bro. Like, come
I'll
on,
go
like
find an
stop
inn
that.
somewhere. We'll
Yeah, like
all
don't
sleep better.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't play with me, bro. Don't do
Yeah.
that. Like the whole
Yeah.
town doesn't want me here because of you. But then he actually seen how he pays respects to Bran. Like that just tells you this is the quote unquote cripple. I hate the realization that yeah he is, but just the fact that like that's what he is, and he commands more respect in the room than a person walking around his own 2 feet with carrying a sword.
Yeah.
That tells you your words are so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it was any Tyrion says explicitly, I'm doing this as a favor to Jon. Basically, he asked
Yeah.
me to take care of Bran, so I feel like me and your brother are kind of weirdly friends now. So yeah, I'm gonna help you out a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's funny. It's like one of those like classic Tyrion lines when he's like talking about even with this saddle, even a cripple can ride a horse. And Bran's like, I'm not a cripple.
So bad.
and and Tyrion's just like Then I'm not a dwarf. My
I'm not.
father will be rejoiced.
And so he still has a charisma. He drops his lines no matter what situation's going on. This
Yeah,
man walks in. He's still a dwarf, okay? He's half the size of everyone walking around him. And he knows the anger and aggressions towards him, but he still cracks jokes. That tells you that's a
yeah.
great character. That's a freaking phenomenal character. So tell me about, I guess not an introduction, but more of Houndor. Like we're hearing more and more about that. Like
Oh,
people,
Hodor.
yeah, it's
Yeah. Um, I feel like that's one of the things that was done in the show that is going to be consistent in the books.
okay.
Because they talk about um old Nan talk. Well, Bran talks about talking to old Nan about Hodor, giving some
Yeah.
exposition about like who he is, and that his real name is Walder. But at some point he's just only could say Hodor, and so everyone started calling him that.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's so tough rereading it after knowing what happens to Hodor.
That's what
It
happened to me.
oh man, it just every time I see him, it just like oh my chest. Every single time I see him, I'm just like, oh damn, damn. But yeah, Hodor, it's just sad, man. It's just sad knowing that like he knows exactly who Bran is, even if Bran doesn't know yet.
That's my question. Okay, so bam. So what's going to so I know you're not supposed to talk about the future all the time. We're not trying to
Mm-hmm.
spoil, right? But me reading this book, I'm like, the signs were there. Like it's literally right in front of your face. It's smacking you with what's going to happen. And I guess us as fans, when you first like enjoy the moment, you don't really put the pieces together like they talk about the puzzle. And I'm like, it felt like it was two chapters and it's one. Like I said, I prefer the first part of the chapter. Not saying he's coming Bob is cool, but just seeing the overall background, the stories,
Mm-hmm.
the questioning of the actual thing. It wasn't about people anymore. It's about the
Yeah.
actual everyone.
Yeah.
And how it just that excited me more than anything else. I don't care about the
Yeah.
story. I want to know about these creatures. I want to know what's going to
Yeah.
happen. I just want to see it.
And I mean, and that's what we get from Bran chapters, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
that's why we look forward to Bran chapters, because he's the only one who's like actively trying to do something against this. You
Gosh.
know,
It's so good. So good. So good.
it's so good. It's so good, and I know like the chapter like ends with him having a little bit of a dream, kind of like reliving a little bit of his fall. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that George writes it when he's talking about, um the gargoyles looking like lions and whispering something, and him saying to them in the dream, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything. Like basically trying to tell them, yo, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. I'm not here. I'm not here. Um,
And it's funny
but
you
yeah,
said that because Tyrion asked them earlier about the fall. Hey, do you remember anything? And then
yeah,
they spoke. The boy remembers nothing. Like not even let him speak for himself, but he remembers nothing.
yeah. It's just like they're just there to like keep Bran's character focused on what really matters.
Yeah.
And you see that time and time again. Anytime someone ever asks Bran what happened, it's always pushed to the side because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds awful because it's actually really not important in the grand scheme of things. Who pushed him out the window? I mean, I get it, but I mean, even the crow when he's having that dream that he
Mm-hmm.
refers to at the beginning of the chapter, when he's thinking about trying to make out the face of the person who pushed him out the window, the crow's like, no, put that aside. You don't need that anymore. We need to be
Tell me,
looking north of the wall.
tell me how crazy that is. Like this thing about that. This entire, not the entire war. There's already underlining things that people already wanted vendettas. People already wanted a chance to go back and stab each other in the back. But a fall is what sparked this entire movement again.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who suffered the fall doesn't care about the fall. I gotta fight something else. Isn't that crazy? That everything that's happening now, the reason why everyone's in King's Landing, all that stuff, is trickled down from the hand and the actual fall. That's like lighting the fire a little bit more than a normal conversation would be. And the victim doesn't give two craps. I got something else to fight.
Yeah,
That's insane.
I mean, again, I think it's just one of those examples that like George is trying to tell us that like all this politicking in King's Landing, none of it really means anything. All
Nothing,
this fighting over the throne, none, none of it's important
bro. This
in
was a fucking.
comparison to what we
This
really
is
have to
like
deal with.
This is like a top 5 chapter for me, bro. Like I've all the like read. This is like top 5. This is
I love this chapter.
yeah. This is one of the few ones where I'm like, yo, he said what? Yo, let me read that again. Yo, she really said
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah. I
that's
mean, we'll have to like as we get further through the books, we'll have to have like a podcast where we just talk about theories about the others and how they came about, because there's so much in like chapters like this where we actually get some more exposition about the Long
yeah.
Night and how Old Nan says how they came the first time. So that means that
A couple times it
they've come
happened.
back. This has happened before, right? So like little tidbits like that. I really want to have an opportunity one day to like
Yo,
break
is
down
there?
some theories, but
That'd be great.
it'll take all day. It'll take all day.
I'm okay with that. I'm definitely okay with that. Now, question is like, this might be like me being naive, but is there a clock that we don't know about that Georgia spoke about? Because it's like, is there a certain time period when they all come back? Like, you said it's happened before, or is there something that triggers it for them to come back? Like,
I
what type of
mean,
winters?
so according to Old Nan's story, she said thousands and thousands of years ago. We have no idea
Mm-hmm.
what that means. I mean, it's Old Nan. She could be making it up. It could be an exaggerated number, but again, based on her story, they've come multiple times in the past.
Anyway,
So
who we
like
got?
so like
Dang,
maybe
bro.
it was thousands and thousands of years ago, but maybe it was 1,000 years ago as well. Like who knows? We don't know. And
Great
it's
time.
purposely left vague for us to just try and piece the shit together later on.
It's so freaking awesome. Who we got next, bro? What chapter's next?
Ned is next. Ned is next. So we're back in
Oh
King's
man,
Landing dealing with Ned after he of course dealt with Arya and got her sword lessons on the down low. So looking
man,
forward to seeing more Ned chapters as he's right in the thick of things there.
yeah, the reality sets in.
Yeah, yeah. It's going things are gonna get a whole lot tighter, man, for Ned out from this point on.
Gosh, like this,
Yeah.
this is man. We go from Daenerys to Bran to like it just shows you the 3 parts of the world where it's all different, bro. It's freaking amazing. Always, man. Peace and love. Peace and love. It stopped at 22:19. No, you're frozen. I'm moving, but you're frozen. But it started at 22:19. It froze. Well, yeah. See, if yeah. Now, do you close it out? My thing says 99% on my screen. Okay. Well, I can't see you, bro. So, can you see me moving? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's like it flashed, like when you close it or open it, and then yeah. So this is definitely a shot. That should be your thumbnail for the pod right there. Yeah, that was a freaking great chapter. Don't be sad. That's gonna be all right. This- I'm not touching Jack. My hands are here. I ain't touching. Yeah, it closed pretty much. All right, I'm about to hop in the pod with him. He's ready already. All right, bro. Peace and love, man. See you later.